chair, you're invited to Welcome to the Table, a podcast where hope meets healing and honest conversations pave the way to restoration. Hosted by Tom and Michelle Weaver, this podcast is a safe space for those navigating the pain of sexual addiction, betrayal, brokenness, or the ripple effect of wounded intimacy. Drawing from their own powerful journey of recovery and redemption, Tom and Michelle bring real-life experience, faith-filled encouragement, and practical resources to those who feel stuck, overwhelmed, or alone. Whether you're struggling with sexual integrity, walking through betrayal trauma, or supporting someone in recovery, this podcast offers guidance, grace, and the reminder that healing is possible. At this table, there's no shame, only support, truth, and the hope of transformation. Join us as we turn what was meant for harm into a testimony of restoration, one conversation at a time.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and this is my husband, Tom Weaver. We are so thrilled to be with you today. It's hard to believe that it's been 3 weeks since the Bridge to Intimacy conference. And we had so many people in the survey ask for more Q&A. So that's why we are blessed to have Dr. Jake Porter and Dr. Barb Steffens back with us today, answering more of your questions. So before we get into that, I want to mention a few things at upcoming events. So next Friday at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, live like this, we'll be meeting with Joanna and Matthew Rabsmith, and that's Sex After Betrayal. And then on May 30th at 6:30 at Faith Bible Church, we are going to be having Fight the New Drug here with us. And we are so excited. If you haven't heard about them, go to fightthenewdrug.org and check them out. So that is for anyone from middle school age, high school, and the parents and the / community. That is not for anyone under the age of a middle school child, just for the what the topic is going to be about. But we look forward to that evening and just spreading the word and getting it out there. So hope that you will join us. You can register there on our tableministry.com website. And also you'll see the retreats, the women's retreat this September and the men's retreat in the fall and October. So hope you can register and join us then. So I'll turn it over to Tom right now.
Hi. As Michelle said, we're so fortunate to have Barb and Dr. Porter back again. As we bring them in, just a little bit more about the surveys. The surveys were loud and clear. You know, some of the overwhelming responses we got were, you know, what most resonated, and what most resonated, besides everything, everybody said all the sessions were wonderful. But also grief was one of them, and shame and guilt were another one that really, really resonated with a lot of people. And then also, as Michelle said, the Q&A. Everybody wanted more time for Q&A. And we did an hour and a half of it. We ran out of time. So we're going to go through that again. And as we bring in Dr. Porter, Dr. Steffens, you know, we're going to get right into the questions and try to get through as many as we can. And we welcome Dr. Porter, Dr. Steffens in. Hey, guys.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Thanks for taking so much of your time again for us. And we appreciate that. And just kind of revisiting the Q&A that we started 3 weeks ago today when we started the conference, and what a powerful thing it was. And you guys, we tried to get the picture up of you guys, the dynamic duo, but it wouldn't scale to the screen here. So we couldn't do it. But you guys were tremendous there at the conference. We got overwhelming response about how much an impact it was on so many people. So, you know, a lot of the questions, some may be repeats from what we answered there. I think some of them were impactful, but we got a lot more too. But just a reminder to those that are listening online or watching online, if you do put something in the comment section, we can see it. But just remember, if we can see it, most likely everybody else can see it. So be aware of what you're putting in there. We don't want to get kicked out, but we want to answer the difficult questions as best we can. Also, we're going to reference the betrayer, typically as the man. We understand men do get betrayed as well. But for the sake of this, we'll be referring to the men as a betrayer as we answer and go through these questions. So welcome in, guys. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
So I guess you want to go with the first question you had on grief?
Oh, yeah.
This one?
How and when does the pain of grief start and lessen?
It's you, Barb.
How and when? Let me start with when first. So it can be immediately, it can come and go, and it'll be different at different stages of your healing process. As you find out maybe new information, if I'm talking to the betrayed partner, that may bring about more grief. I've talked to partners who started experiencing a different level of grief like a year or two later, or even 5 years later, simply because of becoming aware of another implication of the betrayal. So most people want to know, when will it stop?
Yeah.
And I would say that it lessens over time, especially as you are paying attention to it, acknowledging it. Don't jump over it. Remember, we talked about spiritual bypass. I think there's grief bypass as well, where we just want to kind of shove it in a corner. So as you are able, pay attention to it, get curious about it. Why am I feeling this level of grief right now? What does this mean to me? So, and your grief might look really different than somebody else's. Someone else may grieve something really deeply that for you, you say, yeah, that's sad, but I'm okay. This is okay. So when I used to work, I used to run a group for people who had had a sudden death of a loved one. And everyone's grief process was different, and yet it was the same. It just sneaks up on you. It surprises you. It doesn't go away as quickly as you would like. But yeah, there are still points of grief for me, and that's been 30 years. But it's not the pangs of grief. It's remembering the loss. It's remembering maybe something that I had hoped for that didn't come true. So it changes over time. But yeah, grief is part of being alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to do it regardless. But yeah, you have good reason to be grieving. Don't rush it, and don't jump over it. It's precious.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Jake, anything you wanted to add to it?
No, I think she covered it really well. Yeah.
Is there any
Nothing to add.
specific tool that you would say is good to use to help get through grief?
Well, I think it depends on, like Barb was saying, kind of where you are in that process, and I am a big fan of ritualizing grief, finding symbols and metaphors. And I'll give one example. A couple that's in my Choose Connection Academy program, one of their assignments was to come up with a ritual around grief. And they live in an area with much prettier landscape than we have here in Houston. They live where they can have pretty hikes into the hills and everything. And so about once a month, they select a new trail that neither of them have ever been on. And they hike it together. And they find some beautiful place. They sit down there and they choose one thing to sort of remember together. They have a hard conversation in a beautiful place that's new for them both. And that has become a ritual for them that is really meaningful. And it's helping carry them along that grief process. So finding rituals and routines to facilitate grief can be really powerful.
Yeah, that's good.
That is good. That is good. This one then is about grief too. Does my grief depend on his recovery efforts?
Okay. Since you went first last time, I'll go first this time, Barb. Yes and no is what I would say. Yes and no. And I'm going to start with the no. The no is that you can heal, you can grieve and move toward healing. That is something that is within your power and your capacity. I think that's a grace of God that he can do that work in you regardless of what's happening with your husband. So that's the no. But the yes is, if he's not getting into recovery and if he's not joining you in this process, that's one more thing to grieve.
Mm.
That's one more layer of grief. And I just want to acknowledge it's harder. It's not fair. It is hard. But I don't, I like to just make sure that betrayed partners know, my desire is for them to feel empowered by this, that you can heal. There's a work of healing that you can do that is between you and your God, and regardless of what he's doing.
Mm.
That's good. That is good.
Yeah. Okay.
Barb, anything else on that one?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I agree that you're going to have to do your own grief, and it'll look different depending upon what's going on in the relationship. It's wonderful if you can grieve together. It's not essential for the individual,
That's right.
but it is important to grieve and have good, safe people around you. So having community as you grieve, I think is important.
Mm.
Yeah. That's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
What about grief groups?
Like the grief share.
Grief share groups? What do you think about that? For betrayal?
I think those can be helpful at some point as long as you're getting additional support, because they would not have the capacity of understanding this kind of grief. They may
Right.
even minimize it if they really don't understand betrayal.
Yeah, true.
So I think it would depend on where you are in your process and what other supports you have. There are a lot of people that are doing groups now, and they're really making sure they bring in the grief process into the treatment or into the support.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
that's
Very good. Thank you. All right. Here's one that was left over from the conference. How can I tell when my spouse, the betrayer, is showing, quote, real empathy? I guess that's affective, rather than saying the right words, which addicts know how to do. So how do you gauge?
That's a hard question. The first thing I want to say is that I don't think that affective empathy is the only real empathy. So if you actually look at the research on empathy, there's affective empathy and cognitive empathy. They're both empathy. And some people have more capacity for one or the other. Okay. And often, if there's a history of developmental trauma, early childhood trauma, neglect, the capacity for the affective empathy might be quite small and constricted at first. And so that cognitive empathy that's more understanding, like logically, I can understand why you feel that, but you're not necessarily getting that sort of visceral, felt sense of attunement. It doesn't mean it's not real empathy. It might be that affective empathy still needs to be strengthened and developed, but it doesn't mean it's not real. Here's the other thing that complicates this, is that the way we learn is through scaffolding and modeling. And so scripts are often a really important part of helping these guys learn to language empathy. Okay. Now, here's what I believe. I believe that, I'm not saying this is perfect. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% accurate in every single moment. But generally speaking, I believe that betrayed partners, once there's some safety and stability in the relationship, so that their brains don't have to be in hypervigilance, they can discern if he's just feeding you lines from a script versus, no, he really means this. Okay. Now, in that hypervigilance, if there's a lack of safety and stability, that the brain's going to be like, I am not trusting it, right? And understandably so. And what he gets to do there is validate why she doesn't believe it. It makes sense that you wouldn't believe this right now. It makes sense that you'd think I'm just reading from a script. This is new for me. It's awkward. You're right. I've done a lot to keep you from trusting. But later, I really believe once the safety and stability is in place, that most women are able to sense this.
That's good.
I'd love to hear what Barb has to add.
I really don't have very much to add. I would say yes, I think the partner will be able to tell over time if this is something that is really developing or something that their loved one is wanting to experience with them. I think early on it makes sense that you're going to be cautious around that. So just listen, take it in, trust your gut around, is this consistent, or is this I'm ticking a box to show you I'm doing what I'm supposed to do? Again, when you are a little more calm and you have some good supports, you're going to be able to tell the difference. But again, if this is a learned skill for him, something that has been stuffed away for a very long time, it makes sense that it's going to be a rocky start. And they're going to be afraid and defensive and all those things. So that makes sense. So just understand that it's not, you want full empathy right away. That, of course, we long for that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we long for that. But that this is going to be a process. So make sure you're doing the good stuff for you to protect yourself, to be safe, to ask for what you need, and then observe. Sometimes I tell partners, consider yourself kind of way up on a hill and you're observing from a distance what your loved one is doing. And then you'll decide to get closer if it feels safe enough to get even closer to see what's happening. So you don't have to buy it all right away. You're just observing, taking it in. What does it feel like for you?
Yeah, it's good.
That's good.
We see a lot of times when the particularly the spouse doesn't want to, the partner doesn't want to feel or hear that it's scripted. No, they don't want to practice or check that box, but to realize that's part of the learning process to be more empathetic is to go through that script is really, really helpful. Because addicts are addicts, they've done it for so long.
And it makes sense to me because they were going with the script that they were believing before.
That's right.
Then they found out about the betrayal. And so they're so afraid that they're going to be duped,
Right.
misled. And that makes total sense. So, of course, that's a good thing for them to have on for a while, to be safe and to protect themselves and to discern. We're watching for change behavior over time. And if he's willing to do a script, okay, that's one of his steps. It doesn't mean you have to buy it all, but you're seeing at least he's willing to try a script and he's doing that. He's risking that. But it's going to be a long process.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, next question. What does the betrayed spouse do when there are sexual visuals of her husband's infidelity to that she was exposed to in the past and there are unknown triggers?
Can you read that one more time?
What does the betrayed spouse do when there are sexual visuals of her husband's infidelity so that she was exposed to in the past and there are unknown triggers?
That's a really common one, isn't it? Yeah, really common. Working with someone on what makes sense to you to manage those kinds of triggers would be helpful for you. Understand that those are just reminders of the things that you saw or the things that you imagined as you were hearing information. Approach them with gentleness for yourself, that you're having those. It makes sense that you are. Process them, with a person that is trained to help you with trauma triggers. If you can avoid them for a while, do it. I'm not a fan of jumping into triggers and trying to just absorb them. No, that's too much on your body. So find ways of taking good care of yourself when a trigger like that happens, but understand that it's going to happen. And if you can at the time, if someone else is around, if your loved one is around, then say, I'm really triggered right now. I'm not in a good place. And then that's the cue to, I don't feel safe and I need some space. I need a moment. But make sure you process that. Groups can be great places to process that, but really individual support with someone who's trained in helping you through that and give you some skills or some things that you can do. Anything to be present in your body. So sometimes partners will have something they smell that kind of brings them back to the here and now,
Mm.
or something that they're touching or feeling. I remember working with partners that they would start talking about some of the things that they saw, and they would be crocheting or knitting during the time. So there was a tactile kind of stimulus where to keep them grounded and present. So find what works for you, but understand that a trigger is going to come and it's going to go.
Yeah.
And the hard part is working through it. But it totally makes sense that you have those.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I don't know what more I would add. I'll just underline one part of Barb's answer, which is, that kind of trauma in the brain, often something like EMDR
Mhm.
or ETT or brain spotting, one of those modalities of trauma treatment could be super helpful. Not necessarily in making it go away, but reducing the intensity when that gets activated.
Mm-hmm.
And last thing I'll say is, and you deserve that care.
Yes.
You deserve that. It's a real injury to your brain. It's as real as his addiction. It deserves as much care as his addiction.
Excellent. I'm glad you said that, Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really glad you said that.
Right.
What do you think about that one right there? The comment that came in.
Go ahead.
So just kind of a follow-up to what we've just been talking about, the last two questions, really, grief and in this trigger type situation. It's especially hard to keep hearing it takes time when you're 72.
Yeah.
What do you think about those people that are up, that
72,
72, 80,
we got-
that we have somebody 80 that,
a couple people.
how can you encourage them in that stage of life?
Mhm.
The first thing that comes to my mind is I just want to express how much I admire people who are in that stage of life and who are doing this hard work. Like I have, in the truest sense of the word, an admiration for their courage and their persistence and their endurance and their hope. That's the first thing I want to say. And I've worked with couples in their 70s and even 80s. And I will just say I've seen healing happen. You're not too old to heal.
Absolutely.
I've seen healing happen and there be an opening for newness and joy, and you deserve that. Just to go back to that theme, you deserve that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would want to say you deserve it. And whatever healing you think healing is going to look like, we're not going to be fully healed until another time, another place. So, but if you are working towards it, you are honoring yourself, you're honoring your wounds, you're taking good care of yourself, you're showing the strength that you have to even look at it and face it. That's part of the healing process. I have not met a partner yet who says, I am 100% totally healed from what happened. But what they would say is, I have found ways of managing it, bringing it into my story and making it part of my story, but it's not the only part of my story. And so having other ways of viewing it rather than it's just gone. This is the kind of wound that leaves a scar and it gets better. But if you are working towards you taking good care of yourself and managing the things that are happening to you, then you are doing what you can do and you are healing. You are healing.
Yeah.
That's well said.
Well said. Yep.
It is. Can a couple experience health if one or the other is not seeking individual recovery health?
Can a couple experience health if one or the other is not seeking individual health?
Correct.
Well, I try really hard to not be an always never guy. and to not make absolute statements. So, is it possible, conceivably, that within a coupleship, there's one person who has such resilience and such internal resources that they aren't going to need any individual support? I guess that's conceivable. I don't know how likely it is. So I'm not going to be an always never guy, but I'm going to say my answer would be that if you're doing work as a couple, you are doing work as an individual as well. You like in the context of the coupleship. So that might be a perfectly fine context for doing that work. But what I don't think will work is one person saying, I'm not going to engage this at all. It's all you do it and we'll be okay. I'm real skeptical about that.
Yeah, I agree that there's going to be individual things that if we don't address them here and now with this event or whatever is going on, then it's going to keep showing itself, right? And really not heal. So the benefit of having individual support is you are getting the support that you need at that time, rather than waiting 10 years, 15 years when you realize, wow, there's still something really hurting in me, or we are really stuck, or our relationship is going nowhere. So it's so much better to take care of the wounds right around when they're happening and not try to put them off. But I hear that a lot from partners. This is you did it, you broke it, you fix it.
Yep.
And what I say to the partner is, but you're the one who wounded. So if you were hit by a car, would you say that all of the focus goes on whoever just hit you? No, you would need to be attended to. You deserve to be attended to because this shouldn't have happened to you. You have some wounds, and of course you want some care. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means that something happened to you. And we want to take care of you when something like that happens to you.
Yeah.
Very good.
That comes back to what Jake said just a minute ago, because I think so often I meet women, it's like, oh, well, we don't have the money. I got to get him. He needs to do this. He needs to do that, and all of a sudden they're sitting there. There's no money for me. So they don't even think about that. I can't get the help. I can't go here. I can't go there. I can't talk to this person. And it's just that's why I'm so glad too, that you're really both emphasizing, no, that money and resources, the time, everything needs to be spent on her too, or the partner.
Would you not get care for yourself for a physical wound and then have him go and you stay home? I mean, no, that wouldn't be wise. That wouldn't be healthy for you, for him, for your family, for your friends. It just wouldn't be healthy long term. So support. We're not saying that there's something wrong with you and you need treatment.
Right.
We're saying you're wounded and we want to support you, and that support helps you tend to your wounds. I don't think that we were meant to be injured and have to walk through it by ourselves.
Right.
We weren't created for that. We're created to be in community and to have support, and you deserve it. You deserve that support.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about this a little more, let me say one more piece of that about this is I have seen couples who've been at this for like years, and all the resources went toward his addiction and his recovery. And they were doing, this is, I'm not, there's zero like guilt or shame intended with this. They were doing what they thought was right. They might have been doing exactly what they were coached to do or counseled to do or whatever, right? But here's this partner who has had no real meaningful support or treatment for years, okay? And she's still injured, and she is still acting from those injuries. She still gets triggered. She still gets, activated, still has trauma recall come up, all of these things. And here's what can happen is then that is creating distress in their system,
Mm-hmm.
and it undermines what they're both trying to accomplish, right? They were united in, you need healing, right? Well, if the goal is for him to be part of a system, the whole system deserves that care.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really believe you don't have to choose between, if you're both in this, if you're both committed to the healing and recovery process, you don't have to choose between what's best for you and what's best for the relationship, because it's going to be one and the same. And that's going to involve both people getting that care. When a betrayed partner gets good care, it's good for him too. And good for the whole system, the whole relationship.
And I would say that whole system includes the children as well.
Yes.
That you show up as a better parent when you are taking good care of yourself.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So if you had the situation where she was not getting the help from the betrayer, from the betraying, who is the best person to help speak to her about getting the help that she may need when she sits back and says, it's all you, you get your help. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing I have to do. I know he's not the one that's got to say, hey, you need to go to therapy. Who would you say would be the best one to encourage that?
Perhaps if the betrayer is in some kind of recovery process and has a therapist, maybe invite into a session where they're talking about that. And then this third voice might say that. Perhaps there's some friends that might be able to say that. But if you as the betrayer say that, be really careful about how you say it. It's not you need therapy. It's, I know that I have wounded you so deeply,
That's right.
and I am so sad that I can still see evidence of those wounds. And I would love for you to get care just so that you have a safe place to talk about what happened.
Yeah.
So the
And
words you use,
yes.
and I will do whatever it takes so
That's
that
right.
you can
That's right.
do that. That's
I will
part of
go-
making amends.
I will go drive for Uber. I will deliver pizzas.
Yes.
I will
Good.
work
Yes.
Saturdays because you're important to me and this matters.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
So good.
Very good. Cool.
So
Thank
good
you.
you said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just have one other caution. Be
Yep.
cautious around the language, because if you
Yeah.
say you need therapy, then that's something wrong with you, rather than you have a gaping wound and I caused it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
I want to make sure you're getting whatever it is that you might need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we go through that a lot with guys that are in, guys that are in group, come out of the group saying, my wife isn't getting any help. What do I do?
I love the way,
you
y'all
said
share.
that.
Oh
yeah.
my
That was
goodness.
so
So beautiful.
So good
Yep.
to said it like that.
Thank you.
So another thing on wounds is it possible to forgive without opening old wounds?
Old wounds.
I'm taking that as somebody that's
Doesn't
doesn't want to go back, maybe
talk about it.
disclosure. They want to keep the past in the past. Kind of the old motto was sweep it all under the rug and let's not talk about it. Let's move forward, move on.
Yeah.
Can you read the original question again? Yeah.
Is it possible to forgive without opening old wounds?
No. I mean, in order to forgive something, I think you have to know what it is.
Yeah.
Long time ago, I had I'll call him a teacher, and he said, trying to heal from something or forgive something without holding it first is impossible. And he gave the example of someone trying to catch a baseball and then throw it. It has to be in your glove first before you can get it and throw it. And I have a baseball grandson, so I understood that. But yeah, you have to know what it is, and that includes knowing where did it hurt you? What are the wounds, and processing those so that you can make a choice to forgive, which means to let it go and not let it control you any longer. It doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't mean it's okay it happened. It means I am not going to carry that wound around and let it fester. So I don't know how you forgive without opening up that wound.
Mhm.
It's like allowing an infection to continue and
Yeah.
not doing the work to heal the infection. I don't know
Mhm.
what the fear is, because that's what I'm hearing in the question. There's a fear that if I go into those old wounds, that somehow or another I am not forgiving or I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I think we have to completely understand it and hold it as best as we can before you can let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that two thoughts come to my mind just to add to that a little bit. One is, you can open an old wound and you can try to get the infection out. That doesn't mean you have to like open it, hold it open, poke around, dig around, So I want to, be clear that this doesn't mean you have to turn every rock and stone over and imagine and know every detail. I don't think it means that. So, but you do have to face it, right? You face it, you look at it, you open it, you feel it. And I said two things and I lost the second one. Let me see if it comes back really quick. It was you don't have to do that. And then I lost the second one. So there would yeah.
It'll come
If
back
it
to you.
comes back to me, yeah, I'll throw it out there.
Just blurt it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Yep.
You want
Please explain the difference between good shame and guilt.
Good shame and guilt. So definitely related, but two things. Number one is, and I'll remember both two things this time, I hope. Number one is that they feel different. Like in the body, I think that they actually feel different. And the feeling of the difference actually is associated with the different purposes of those two emotions. Guilt is something I feel usually right here, right? When I feel guilty, it's this gnawing sensation in my gut. And I feel it when I've violated my own values, when I've done something that goes against my own ethics. And that gnawing sensation causes a distress that makes me want to make it right. Okay. Now, shame, healthy shame is when I've done something and I'm aware of others seeing it. So shame has a relational component to it. Guilt I can feel when no one else knows. Shame I feel when I become aware of other people seeing or knowing. And that other person can be God, I'll throw in there. And shame makes me want to hide. Okay. I want to hide. So the signaling there is this thing I've done makes me unsafe relationally. It makes me feel like I would be put out of relationships. So let me preemptively do that and remove myself. Now, that's not what we then need to do. What do we need to do? We need to go opposite the shame and own. And there's just so many piles of research on this. And, Brene Brown popularized it in some powerful ways. When we speak our shame in vulnerable ways, in healthy, appropriate relationships, the shame loses its power and we get restored. And that feeling of restoration actually cements within us not wanting to do that thing again.
Yeah, that's good. Shame is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Good. Another question, going back towards empathy a little bit, but this question was, please address how difficult empathy, et cetera, can be for neurodiverse people, but that it can be learned. And then please give examples of how they can learn empathy.
Well, I do. This is, with neurodiversity, often, this is not 100%. This is not an always never statement, but often folks with neurodiversity are going to experience the affective side differently. And they may, it's interesting, often they feel the affect, but they don't signal it. Okay. Which what that means is the receiver there, the other person, doesn't necessarily have that felt sense of resonance that helps them know that the other person's feeling it. Especially with a lot of people maybe on the spectrum or whatever, just because they're not signaling it in a way that it resonates in your nervous system doesn't mean they're not actually feeling it. Okay. For example, folks on the spectrum actually are highly attuned in some ways. Okay. But the signaling is the issue. We have had some success with some skills-based approaches like RODBT, which is radically open dialectic behavioral therapy, where it actually teaches tools and, around awareness and signaling different affective states, signaling emotions. There's been some success we've had there. So these things can be learned. There can be improvement, but I also think we need to remember that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're ever going to get to a place where someone with a different brain might get.
Yeah. It's a common question nowadays, I think, too. A lot of people.
I would just add, it's important if you think that might be going on, talk to someone about it and get it assessed, because that can be helpful. Then you have the information. I've worked with a lot of partners where they think maybe that might be what's going on, but their loved one is not willing to get an assessment. And so I would just encourage openness. We want to know what is going to help you heal and help you communicate and help you connect. And so doing an assessment can just help provide more information so that you can take the steps that will be helpful.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead. You want to read that one?
Oh.
I'm looking for one I saw here.
During discovery, are there some level of questions that might be more unhealthy?
Barb, do you want to do that
During
one?
discovery or during the disclosure?
During discovery, are there some level of questions that might be more unhealthy?
Yeah. But during discovery, I don't know that you're going to be able to hold those back, because you're trying to make sense of and find out what is this, how long has it happened, what else don't I know. And so those questions are going to be coming.
Right.
And it'd be wonderful if they could write those down and then process with someone before they ask those questions. But I think that's going to be really hard to do. Not disclosure, like a therapeutic disclosure process. We'll talk about what are some helpful questions and what questions might not be so helpful. But during discovery, the person who has just discovered, they want to know. They don't ever want to be unaware again. And so they're going to ask the questions. So don't ask a question if you're afraid that you might get violent, something like that. But again, when someone is in that time of discovery, it really is trying to figure out what just happened or what else has happened. What else don't I know? So you can ask any question. Those are your questions. They belong to you. You have curiosity. You have need to know. But just fully understand that you may not get answers, especially not immediately, and that there will be consequences to some of the answers in terms of pain, but you're already in pain. So just navigate that as best as you can. But discovery is a different beast. It just is, because it's like stepping on a landmine and you want to know, is my hand, my foot still intact here? What just happened?
Yeah. And this is a great place to plug finding good support as quickly as you can. Right? Finding a group, a coach, a therapist where you can have a little reprieve, maybe the intensity and the distress can be lessened just enough so that frontal lobe can come on just enough so that you can have a conversation with someone to think through what you want to ask and not ask, and do you want to ask this now? Do you want to hold off until a disclosure process? You get to decide. Like Barb said, those are your questions, and you get to decide. But getting to that place of support as soon as you can, I think will help you. I was going to say make better decisions, but actually just make decisions rather than react from the trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Because
you.
you say that a lot. We're careful because there will be some things you won't forget.
Right. Right.
You just stick in your mind.
Like you said, Barb, write them down because, you can get those answered at disclosure and know that they're true and get them verified, but get them out of your head and talk them out, like you said.
Let's see. Okay, here's the one I was looking for, couldn't find, but finally found it. I think it's a really good question because we talked a lot at the conference about honesty, secrecy, lying, what is, what isn't. So when confronted husband about relapse yearly for 30 years, says he's doing his recovery progress. No safety, no stability. So I put money aside. He found it, says I now betrayed him. Did I?
No. Sounds like you're protecting yourself. You are taking care of your safety. You are thinking about, what do I need? Because he says that you are betraying, not that he feels betrayed, but that you are betraying, doesn't make it true. And it sounds like a defensive kind of response. But no, if you are doing things to take good care of you and to plan and to protect yourself, those are safety needs. That's not betrayal.
Totally agree.
Good. Okay. Husband took and failed 3 polygraphs since disclosure in January of 23. Last was November of 2023. New things came out after the second one, but he says he won't pass because he's too nervous to take another polygraph. Now what?
Anxiety is not what causes people to fail polygraphs. In fact, anxiety is a necessary part of the polygraph process. And so that's an excuse. I'm not saying it's not an excuse that he believes. He may believe it. But I'm just telling you, anxiety is not what's going to cause someone to fail a polygraph. And again, I'm not going to be an always never guy, but it would be very, very rare. I'll just say, because it's fresh on my mind, I just recorded an interview with Stephen Kabler, who's a well-known polygraph examiner who's done lots and lots of polygraphs with sex addicts, and we'll be showing that during our free summit coming up. So you can tune into that, and he goes into a lot more detail on this. I would say, though, this to me, if you were to bring me your situation, I would have a lot of questions about what did the preparation process look like for these polygraphs? What did the disclosure look like? And because it could be that a more thorough preparation could result in a different outcome. And so that might be worth investigating.
The question I would have for the partner is, what does your internal gut say about his ability or inability to pass a polygraph? What are the behaviors that you're seeing? What are the changes, if any, that you're seeing in terms of how he is showing up in the relationship, how he is demonstrating trustworthiness to you? What is your gut saying? Rather than, well, he can't pass because he's anxious.
Yeah, I think the first part, I already clicked off the question, but I think the first part of it did say there were relapses, right? Yearly relapses. So if he's consistently relapsing, there's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I would encourage that person to make sure you have good support as you process what do you want to do with that kind of information, because you're getting information. Now, what do you need to do to take good care of yourself with that situation?
Mhm.
Yeah. Thinking about honesty, I wonder about this scenario. I told my husband, the betrayer, that I was invited to my pastor's place for supper, which was true. I did not tell him that the purpose was to discuss my desire for membership. I didn't want him to be mad at me. Is that dishonest? What would be appropriate? What would be an appropriate way to handle it?
She withheld. I want to make sure I understood this right. She told her husband she was going to the pastor's house for dinner. Didn't say it was for the purpose of discussing membership at the church, I'm assuming. And she withheld that because her husband would be upset.
Correct. Is that dishonest?
I mean, my mind can't help but go to another question of why would he be upset about that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That the
Mhm.
problem is that that's a scary scenario.
Right.
That tells me that there's a real lack of safety in the relationship. You know, I mean, so let me say, are you withholding truth? Yeah, you are. But my question here isn't about that. My question is, what is going on that you can't say you're going to go discuss church membership with the pastor?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Too many people be stuck on the lie part.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's a
I'm like,
good
Tell me the
question.
truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jake. What is going on that's something that you feel like I need to withhold it? And if you need to withhold something for safety purposes, you're doing it for your safety.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have another one up there?
I don't know if you want to hit that one that came in online comment.
Which one? Go ahead, read it. I don't know which one you're talking.
Dr. Barbara, what is your biggest advice for a betrayed partner healing through divorce that she initiated? Addict is unrepentant of all he's done.
Didn't even say he's sorry.
Yeah.
And self-care tips, resources that you might have.
I think the main resource is just make sure you have good support as you're going through this, because you'll probably still have some connection, some contact with that individual, saying those things, behaving those ways. So make sure you're not doing this alone. You know, the wonderful thing about, you know, the organization that Jake and I are part of is APSATS, is we have trained people that really specialize in helping people who are going through a divorce process, especially the divorces where it still is not feeling safe. The other person is still saying things, doing things that are really disruptive. So making sure that you have good support as you're doing that. Build a really, really good, strong group of individuals that are there just to support you. So they can help you then think through what's reality for you. What do you need to feel safe in this situation? And by safe, I'm not meaning physical safety necessarily, but sometimes after divorce and someone is still misbehaving in terms of trying to manipulate or control things. So having some good boundaries in place around what contact you have and what contact should you not have at this point. So yeah, again, just that really good support is so essential. This is a hard time. It is a hard time when you are coming away from a marriage, a relationship, and trying to start a new life, but there's still connection, there's still communication. How do you protect yourself from that? So yeah, there are wonderful groups and people that are doing this specific kind of work. And so if you want to email me, I can give you a couple of ideas, but there are providers through AppSets that they do a really good job of that.
Do you want to put your email out there in case they do want to email you?
Sure. Do I put that in the comments?
Yeah, you could do that.
And I'll throw out there, there are, like Barb said, lots of good people doing this work. I happen to know someone else here in Houston. She's got her own practice, but also does some work with us. Andrea Rogers has a she's a APSATS certified coach. She and I have been talking. She's developing and about to launch a group specifically for people going through divorce or who've recently divorced, and that's happening soon. So I don't mind putting my contact information there as well if someone might want to reach out to Andrea.
Okay. All right. Another question, really good one, I believe, is it wrong to set timelines for the betrayer's recovery action plan, his disclosure, etc.? When I question my husband and what he's done, he gets angry, wants to do things his way and at his pace. Jake?
So that's a choice he can make. And if he makes that choice, that sets you up for your next choice. There's a lot of data that you're getting with that sort of response. And if he thinks he has the right to be married to you and expect you to just go along with his timeline and him excluding you from input and consideration in that process, that's like I said, that's a lot of data about him. And here's just to be real direct about timelines. Here's what I say. Let's take disclosure as an example. We want the disclosure to happen as quickly as possible, that it can be done well and safely, right? And we find that in most cases, we can help people get to a disclosure between 8 and 12 weeks. Okay. Are there instances where we wait longer or we postpone? There are, but it's always because there's a very specific safety consideration or there might be a co-occurring issue that really needs to be addressed and stabilized first, that kind of thing. But that's rare. So you can have a timeline, but we can have flexibility with that as well, because we know that other things come up. But yeah, there's my answer. Since
you went there, I got to ask you, is there any scenario where you'd bump it up from that 8 to 12 weeks? Yeah.
If they're highly motivated, we're not aware of any safety issues or other issues, and they have the capacity to, double up on their preparation sessions every week and all that kind of stuff, we might do it sooner. Another thing that we've done is we've done an emergency partial disclosure just around, like, are the kids safe? Are, like a very limited set of topics to then give at least that much safety to the betrayed partner while she awaits the full disclosure.
Do you have a polygraph follow that one too?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Well, I guess it's really underlying something Jake said was you're still getting information. If he's not moving along and he's getting defensive in the process, he is giving you information about, the kind of the position of his heart right now, his intentions. And so pay attention to that. I'll talk to partners about being an interested observer in these early days. You're interested in what they're doing, but you're taking an observational role. You're looking for data based on what they're doing, much more so than what they're saying. Although if they say things in ways that sound, offensive or controlling or dismissing you, that's important information as well. They're always giving information.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's true.
Yeah, all right. I think we're pretty much up against the clock. We still have tons of questions we could go through, but we can't get to them all again. Of course, we'd be here till next year. But we really do appreciate you guys sharing some more of your time with us and being here.
Thank you.
Any parting thoughts you may have, excuse me, on maybe your summit that you have coming up, Jake or Barb? You have anything you want to share before we close out here?
Well, I'll say, if you want to go to chooseconnectionsummit.com, you can grab a free pass there. There is a pass you can purchase if you want the recordings and all that, but lots of people don't do it. There's tons. I think we've got like 50 speakers this year. So it's pretty huge. And a lot of good resources. Here's what I want to say though, kind of a parting thought is it's Good Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is.
It's Good Friday. And what a weird name for this day.
Isn't it?
It's a strange,
It is.
strange thing to call the
Mhm.
day of what I think is the most horrific act that's ever happened in the history of humanity.
Mhm.
But it's Good Friday because God was able to do something really amazing from that. And that gives me hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that others can tap into that hope as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Barb, anything you wanted to
Wow.
share?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to say anything after that. That was wonderful.
That was wonderful.
Around Good
Mm.
Friday. There is going to be a conference in June in
Mm.
Tennessee. I'm going to be
Mm.
there. Jake's going to be there. It's a
Mhm.
first of its kind. And it is called Hope for Healing.
Mm.
So for whatever reason, I can't put my email in the chat. So if you guys want to send that out to people, you can.
Sure.
And I can send them some more information. But it's an organization that started that it's going to provide a lot of good information. And they're really gearing it towards individuals and couples.
Mm.
So check
That's
that
cool.
out. But it's CSBD Hope for Healing.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's so good.
Which email would you like to be put out there?
Oh, Jake already put it out there.
Really?
Thanks,
Good for
Jake.
Okay,
You're
yeah.
welcome.
That's because you're logged into YouTube and I'm not yet.
There you go.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, again, thank you guys for
Thank you
your
so
time again.
much.
We appreciate you guys so much, the dynamic duo.
Yes, they are.
And
You
just
are.
a wealth of information. Thank you guys.
Oh,
Thank
Thank
y'all for all you
Thank
do.
Happy Easter.